Professor Morimoto, thank you very much for your time today. And what do you think about the outcome of the meeting between President Bush and Prime Minister Koizumi?
Well, I have a very strong impression that summit meeting between Japanese and United States political leader was very constructive and substantial in this occasion, mainly because we have a good timing for both sides.
And what was the focal point or the major agenda in the meeting?
We have two typical agenda for this dialogue, which were very security oriented. Of course, the first one is how to deal with the anti-terrorism campaign, and also how to deal with North Korea in a context of the peace and security in Northeast Asia, but also the Americans' axis of evil policies. As for the Iraq, American government relatively emphasized on preemptive actions against Iraq, but the Japanese side asked for United States to take a diplomatic effort for setting up new legal frameworks such as United Nations Security Council resolution to encourage international society to join the international coalition. Because even the United States intend to take preemptive actions against Iraq unilaterally, I think this is relatively a legal problem in a context of United Nations Charter, especially U.S. excuse this preemptive action as one of the self-defense based on the Article 51 of United Nations Charter. However, we cannot expect a broad sense of international coalition or international cooperation to follow up U.S. preemptive action. So that is the first problem. This is not a difference of standpoint, but this is a difference of priority. As for the North Korea, United States relatively emphasize on the weapon of mass destruction development, but Japanese side emphasize humanitarian issues such as kidnapping or abductions of Japanese nationals. So American side asked for the Japanese side to encourage North Korea to resume the dialogue with United States. We agreed, but on the other hand, we asked for the Americans to understand our first priority, which is called abduction or kidnapping issue.
So there were two major issues on the agenda. However, there are slight difference or big differences between Japan's and United States standpoints on both issues. And Professor, what is the nature of United States strategy, which the United States has been taking after the September 11th last year?
The American strategy has changed twice for last decade. The first change of strategy is happened a few years after the end of the Cold War, mainly 1992 to 1997, based on the bottom-up review, which was released September 1993. But the second change of their strategy arised just after the September 11th incident. Last 1 year, American has been reviewing the policy based on the new kind of threat, which is invisible and unidentified. Then the American strategy relatively based on the preemptive action or preemptive attack rather than deterrence of retaliation, because we don't know which direction the threat is coming from. And also terrorists basically don't care the retaliation. So current theory of deterrence does not work well. Therefore, Americans intend to take preemptive action against the non-state or state. But the problem is that, as I said, this is some sort of a legal problem as well. The second factors of new strategy is national security, especially homeland security or homeland defense, which will be concentrate the homeland security rather than forward deployment strategy. But we do not know what kind of implication or impact of new strategy will be the alliance or alliance relationship.
And what are the things that Japan can contribute to the United States under its current law, and what cannot be done under the current law? And if Japan intends to cooperate with the United States, what should Japan's government do in order to gain the public's understandings and in order to convince the public?
After the September 11th incident happened, Japan, especially 24 Japanese people are killed in New York. Then our society strongly support U.S. campaign against terrorism in Afghanistan and also Pakistan as well. We passed through the domestic legislation to allow the Japan to dispatch maritime ships in Indian Ocean to refuel the American and British ships so far. We are now sending 5 maritime ships to do so. But problem is that our legislation allows our self-defense force activity to continue this activity in the Indian Ocean by sometime mid-November. But legal problem is that we cannot extend or apply this domestic legislation for the U.S. military campaign against Iraq because this legislation is extremely earmarked September 11th terrorism incident. In order to get public support to incorporate Americans' activity, we need 2 kind of factor or issues. One is that we need very clear-cut physical evidence on the violation of weapon mass destruction by Iraq. That is the first one. Second one is that we need additional legal framework, such as the United Nations Security Council resolution, for Japan to join some sort of a support for coalition activities, such as logistical support for U.S. military activities.
Well, 2 days ago, it marked the first anniversary of the terror attacks in New York and Washington, and President Bush made a speech yesterday at the United Nations. And how did you view his speech?
Well, the speech was very exciting. Quite frankly, it is not a big surprise for myself. But so far, American people used to be strongly support U.S. military campaign against Iraq. But relatively, this kind of public support is down for recent months. I have a very strong impression that President Bush's strong determination has not really changed yet. I think Americans will be making a very drastic diplomatic behavior or effort to make a better environment for U.S. military campaign against Iraq in the future. I think President Bush's speech is the beginning of this diplomatic effort. As a next step, United States will make some sort of effort in a United Nations to pass through additional United Nations Security Council resolution to allow the international society to join some sort of international cooperation or international coalition activities against Iraq.
Obviously, the entire nation is closely watching at the President Bush's every single move. Now, what will be the role of Japan in the international community, both in the long run and short run?
Well, looking at the international society for the last decade, especially after the end of the Cold War, we have two kinds of factor or momentum. One is that Americans unilateralism. Another one is multilateralism to deal with transnational issues. The problem is that how to cooperate Americans unilateralism with multilateralism or multilateral cooperation to deal with the transnational issues. Sometimes Americans are relatively arrogant against multilateralism. So our role as a key member of U.S. allied country, we strongly intend to encourage the American government cooperate with multilateralism or multilateral cooperation to deal with the various kind of transnational issues, including terrorism or weapon of mass destruction issue.
And do you think that Japan can fulfill the expectations from the other countries?
I hope so, but in order to do so, we have to rehabilitate Japanese economy. I think this is the first priority for Japan.
Professor Morimoto, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.